At the very end of Pathologic 2, you are confronted with a choice. Very simply, to defeat the plague, you must either embrace magic or science. There is additional meaning to these, of course. They represent the past or the future, innovation or traditionalism, miracles and wonders or technology and progress. They both have their pros and cons, and the choice is, like all things in Pathologic, cruel. It hurts. It is obvious that you not only choose one side over the other, you are sacrificing one side over the other. At the end of the game, you understand that you are killing part of the world to survive. At the end of the game, you understand that you are killing part of yourself to survive. The strange part is, beneath all of the shock and fear and resentment and dissatisfaction, a part of me felt relieved. This essay was always going to be difficult to write, so in the end I chose not to write it. This is not an essay. It's a free-form list of thoughts and associations I had while playing Pathologic 2. It's a quest for catharsis. It's an attempt to figure out who and what I am. When I play Pathologic 2, I think about how Artemy, the protagonist, is mixed race. It's one of the first big changes I noticed from the first game. Beyond the graphics, beyond actually having a tutorial sequence, they changed Artemy as a person. The Pathologic games are iterative rather than sequential, with each game essentially being a different take on the same 12 days. Different timelines in which your healer struggles to identify and fight the plague, while also slowly becoming the sole emotional support of a dying town. Perhaps most people won't notice or put much weight on the change of Artemy's ethnicity. He still looks much the same, his story still starts in much the same place. You are a surgeon called home by your father after many years studying abroad. Once you arrive in town, you are wrongfully charged with the murder of your father, and come to realize that what killed him was the plague. Now you have much, much bigger problems on your hands. Like in the first game, Artemy is still a Haruspex, a naturalistic healer to counterbalance the scientific bachelor and the supernatural Clara. His role is to unite and strengthen the kin, the Buryat-inspired people of the steppe, while also dealing with the politics and squabblings of the more Slavic townsfolk. They are the two sides of his heritage after all, his mother and his father respectively, two disparate factions synthesized into one. It's not very surprising that I noticed, really. After all, I'm also mixed race. In the simplest terms, my mother is white and my father is black. This is always the place I freeze up when I tried to write this essay, because in speaking about the mixed experience, I felt this burden to be all-inclusive, to give voice to and do right by people like me because our stories are rare. I felt this obligation to balance my own life and thoughts with those of others because I might not get another chance, to adequately cover all of the angles, to account for every variable, and recognize that the lived experience of mixed people is multifaceted and complex. But I realized I couldn't do that. I didn't know enough, and I wasn't talented enough. And of course, this isn't an essay. What it is complicated. By its very nature, it is endlessly complicated. Simply finding stories about mixed people, much less deep, nuanced analysis of our lives, is challenging. It's not like it never happens. I mean, mixed people can and do show up in media, but it's usually on the edges of someone else's story, established through a throwaway line, a brief shot of their home life, a passing nod to a side character. And it's not that every story involving a mixed person has to be about the mixed experience. That's not what I'm asking for. But most often, that's what we get. And once we're within that category, well, the results vary. Sometimes I am lucky, and the story is a thorough, thought-out exploration of a mixed person's identity and the unique challenges they face within society. Sometimes it's a little bit more simplistic. It's set dressing, barely acknowledged and rarely explored. Or they are merely there to teach the audience. Their points valid, but a bit trite, often hitting the same notes and tropes with the same tepid reassurance that your differences are what make you special. You just have to embrace and love that side that every other person you know is super weird about. And yes, there's a time and place for these stories, and I do enjoy them when I'm in the right mood. But mostly I find them bland, repetitive. You could interchange any of these characters with another in the category and have the exact same story. I often find myself wondering whether these stories were written for or by mixed people, if they were even made with mixed people in mind. They feel awfully prescriptive, like they're just there to teach children to be nice to others and accept their differences, not actually convey what it feels like to be someone like me. But Pathologic 2 is far more intimate, more nuanced, more thorny. Artemy's heritage is vital to the game, and he must explore what it means to not only inherit his father's legacy, but also decide how to make it his own. Artemy's father, Isidore, is a revered member of the kin, while his mother is an unnamed woman from town. There is a distinct friction between the two cultures. The townsfolk are clearly the dominant, colonizing force in the game. They make the laws, determine where the kin may work, and cloister them up in grim buildings like the Termitary. And honestly, that's as perfect an illustration as any. To many of the townsfolk, the kin are not people, they're termites. They're little bugs infesting the town on the River Gorkon, even though by all accounts, the kin were here first. There's a constant growing tension throughout the game as Artemy is pulled between these two sides, as people determine what Artemy is and what he should be. Artemy must prove again and again that he is who he claims, and he does belong. Although Artemy deals with cultural estrangement in the first game, it's different. There, it stems from being away from home for a long time, as he left to study surgery. He forgot the customs of his home because he no longer had need for them, had found better, newer, more Slavic solutions. Watching Artemy reconnect with his home is an interesting, complicated experience, as he must take his father's place as the healer and spiritual leader of the kin, while only remembering the sparsest fragments of the culture. In the second game, however, it's a bit different. While he was still away from town for several years, learning to become a surgeon, his recollections of the past are far more detailed and relevant to his life. Even unimportant conversations are filled with facts about little games he used to play, old pets, nicknames he gave people when he was young. You can affect his level of familiarity with the culture through your roleplay, choosing to make him remember or forget depending on your whims, but even that option is a far cry from his distant, almost disinterested memories in the first game. And yet, there are still things Artemy does not know. It's a mechanical necessity, sure. The lore of Pathologic is complicated and often abstract, and the devs, Icepick Lodge, need a reason to explain everything to the player. It's why, in part, the first game encourages you to play as the Bachelor the first time around. He is the outsider of the town, the stranger that must be lectured in order to understand the spiderweb he so brutally hacks through. Then you play as Artemy and more knowledge is layered in, building on the ideas you've already been taught. Then you play as Clara and even more strange, complicated ideas are added on top, a tower you can now fully engage with at your leisure. In Pathologic 2, however, Artemy is the only playable protagonist. Everything you learn must be through his eyes, and everything you are told must have a narrative reason for him to learn. But this is Artemy's culture, and he clearly did not forget, so what is the reason for him not knowing? Why do people have to tell him about his world? Perhaps he simply wasn't interested in learning all of the folk tales and superstitions when he was a child. Perhaps he was more intrigued by the life of the townsfolk. Perhaps Isidore was too busy tending to the kin to teach his son. Or perhaps the knowledge wasn't offered to him because he was not deemed kin enough. When the kin speak to him, it's with condescension. He is often regarded as an outsider, even though he lived with them far longer than when he was away. It's much the same with the townsfolk. You don't know our customs because you're not really like us. Not all the way. You're only part townsfolk, only part kin. Of course you wouldn't get it. I shouldn't be surprised. In a normal story, in a not pathologic story, Artemy learning his roots, learning the lines, would be cause for celebration and catharsis. He has found the empty place within himself and filled it with knowledge, and it is a comfort to him. He has learned all of himself, so he is now whole. But this is a pathologic story, and reconnecting with his heritage, while empowering, also brings new problems. In many ways, the culture of the kin can be brutal, bloodthirsty, and intolerant. They are hostile to change, adhering to tradition and custom rather than seeking new, functional solutions. Herb brides are viewed as tools rather than people, sexualized and dehumanized as a matter of course. Problems are solved with blood, human or animal, and yet the parameters of sacrifice, justice, and vengeance are inconsistent and seemingly arbitrary, depending on who you're speaking to. Shed one creature's blood to solve a minor problem. Shed an entire town's. The earth is hungry, and it can't be that sacrifice won't help. You just don't have enough faith, Burakh. You don't believe like a full-blooded kin might. You can voice some level of dissent if you want. You can criticize your culture, both parts of it, because you alone have context to question what you are seeing. And the moment you do, maybe even before, the person will push back. You just don't get it, outsider. You're not full kin. We can tell by how you think. You disagree because you're fundamentally, intolerably different from us. Not because we're doing anything wrong. And maybe that's true. Maybe if I was totally like you down to my marrow, I would get it. Or maybe I would still think that girl should not have died. Maybe it's wrong that the only way we can think to move forward is through blood. The townsfolk aren't inherently better. Mind. For how badly they want to frame the kin as backwards fools, their practices can be just as rigid and perverse. The town is built on complicated, decaying social systems that are only immutable until someone arbitrarily mutates them. They praise themselves as enlightened. Well, they praise themselves for having some enlightened thinkers, and yet devolve into violence and petty backstabbing at their earliest convenience. The first day in town, you see a woman being burned alive. The townsfolk had decided she was a Shabnak, a demonic woman that is supposedly killing people. At least, she might have been a Shabnak. There were several candidates and only a little evidence, and you can't really leave these things to chance, so the townsfolk took action. It's curious how only kin were targeted in this hunt. Only they were brutally, horribly killed to sate the town's superstitions. And the moment you question them, maybe even before, the person will push back. You wouldn't get it, Butcher. You never really did think like us, did you? You're not part of the town. We can tell by the way you think. You only disagree because you're fundamentally, intolerably different. Not because we're doing anything wrong. And maybe that's true. Maybe if I was totally like you, down to my marrow, I would get it. Or maybe I would still think that girl should not have died. Maybe it is wrong that the only way we can think to move forward is through blood. I think about the marble nest and that horribly cruel quest where you are led by the nose into taking a girl's sacrificial heart. It feels strange and scary, but the kin reassure you that this will help, this is necessary, this sacrifice is an act of healing. There's no way for the bachelor to know that this was coming, no way for him to intervene as an ignorant outsider. And maybe they're right. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know enough about this culture to say. But maybe, when you present the heart, this solution, this miracle to the tragedians that set the quest, they are frightened and repulsed. Bachelor, you are holding a human heart. How could you have done this? We were speaking in metaphor. You killed someone. We all know this was wrong. What strange, backwards people could have put that idea into your head? I think about how the tragedians, if real, are likely townsfolk, completely outside the culture of the kin. I think about Artemy, and if he would have known what to do, how to better navigate the circumstance. Would he have been able to thread the needle between townsfolk and kin, make proper use of the girl's sacrifice, read the lines as a path to success? He cut open that girl in Pathologic 1. He read the lines and converted the trash in her chest into a heart. He learned vital knowledge. He still let a girl be sacrificed. Was this the same? Would he have been able to use the heart that the bachelor was given? Would he have understood the double contradicting meaning of what was going on? Would he have even found himself in that situation? Would he have committed the taboo of healing the Odong like Daniil? I don't know. I think about it all the time, and I don't know. I think about how my sister described being mixed as a lifetime of displacement.
For those who are mixed race, it is a given that at some point in their life, they are going to be made to feel like they don't belong.
Just causes a lot of confusion with identity.
Often the issue for mixed people is that obviously we don't fit into any boxes very well.
A lot of people think that mixing cultures dilutes cultures, and the kids lose a sense of culture when they grow up, and they're not quite as they don't quite have as strong values as their parents did.
Sometimes I wish I could walk in and just be recognized as a Mexican American.
I never saw myself as different from anybody else until someone else pointed it out.
Maybe you get lucky and find a place that doesn't care, is accepting, is full of people like you, and that's wonderful. But maybe you don't. Maybe you're never quite able to settle in. Maybe you always have to push back and make space for yourself, keeping the walls from closing in. I think about how Artemy experiences overt racism around town. It's not directed at him, not always, but they are still stones slung at a crowd that he is a part of. Townsfolk will confidently tell you that the kin brought about the plague, their carelessness and their filth spreading the disease. Children make rude comments about Artemy's appearance, and he has to correct them. A kinsman scoffs at outsiders ruining the place, and Artemy has to remind the man that he is an outsider too, for what it's worth. Even with childhood friends, he isn't safe. Laura hisses not to call her the term of endearment, basagan, because that's what people call the herb brides, and she's not like them, or little step girls. Reuben sneers at the folk medicine of the kin, calling them stupid fools, even though he trained as an apprentice to these stupid means, even though he views himself as Isidore's son. I think about how strange it is that Reuben would disparage the kin to Artemy, of all people. Artemy may have his complaints, but he is also clearly involving himself with the kin more every day. I wonder whether it's because Reuben perceives Artemy as not so kin that he's distasteful. When they speak, Artemy doesn't use the step language with him, code switching into a more familiar dialect. I wonder if Reuben sees Artemy as someone like him, his so-called doppelganger, one of the townsfolk granted access to the kin's ways, but never really becoming a part of them. I think about my own rare, brief brushes with overt racism, being called a slur at school, or being told I'm not allowed to wear my hair in braids or a scarf because it's not professional or tidy or in compliance with the rules. I think about smaller instances, more subtle ones. The uncomfortable comments about the food I eat, or the way I speak, or the worldview that I have. I think about how I must either stay quiet and let these harmful beliefs remain, or speak up, push back, and risk things turning even more sour. I think about how Artemy must constantly decide whether to defend his people and risk conflict, or swallow the bigotry and go about his day in peace. It's risky, getting into a fight in these games, and it's much easier to just grit your teeth and let someone keep throwing stones at your group because, hey, they're not aiming at you directly. There's a good chance they won't hit you specifically. I think about how often I push back, how often I weigh whether it's worth pushing back, how I still feel estranged and othered even when I avoid the fight and keep my head down. I think about how Artemy still needs the townsfolk and the kin, even as he conflicts with them. He needs the vendors, the bureaucrats, the architects, and the thugs just as much as he needs the bulls, the Mother Superior, the herb brides, and the butchers. I think about how he blends these practices and beliefs together in an attempt to survive a world that rots and decays around him. He needs the pills, needs the tinctures, needs everything. It is only through engaging with both cultures, both aspects of his heritage, that he is able to proceed and grow. Rejecting one, abandoning one culture and its practices means either skipping large chunks of the game or failing to proceed entirely. I think how sad it is that he needs the things that hurt him. I think about how hard he works to keep them from hurting him. Once Artemy establishes himself in the town, proves himself a worthwhile leader, people tell him over and over that he has their respect, their obedience, his choices are correct, and they will follow his words. I think about how he had to do exactly what these people wanted to even reach that point, to prove himself more like them than anyone has ever been. I think about how narratively and mechanically, Artemy still can't redefine or engage with his culture in new ways. He must comply, and he must obey. But what is the alternative? When you are already so willingly othered by people that should be your own, it becomes difficult to push even harder against the crowd. And when conversations are as dicey as they are in Pathologic, every disagreement might destroy your chances at success. Saying the wrong thing can lock you out of information, deny you opportunity, or even launch you into a fight you cannot afford to have. In Pathologic, you don't get to talk someone into not being racially prejudiced anymore. In Pathologic, standing your ground on social issues feels so stupidly, bullheadedly minor compared to everything you already have to face. You are starving, and there's only a single crust of bread to keep you from the grave. Death swarms haunt the streets. Children are wrapped in rags and whisper how their body burns. In a world like this, there is no comfort in conviction, because there is no comfort. Why are you picking this fight? It's easier to agree. It's easier to let everyone feel confident in their worldview. Your life is already so hard. Does it hurt if you just put your head down and go along with it? Does it hurt if you just tell them what they want to hear so you can go do the actually important things? I think about how if you say something enough, if you hear it enough, you start to believe it. The connection in your brain becomes stronger. Your very memories can become distorted. You're right. That's the truth. It's always been that way. It even came out of my own mouth. The kin are like that. The townsfolk are like that. I am like that. Because I am a part of both those groups, and I never pushed back. Pathologic 2 doesn't track your role-playing closely enough for every casual conversation to have a consequence, but it still affected me, shaped how my Artemy moved through the world. I still said these things. These words were still formed by my tongue. This is my pattern of behavior. Maybe the world didn't notice, but I did. I said it, and now my brain's different. I said it, and there's a chance I don't think I can be anything else. I think about how Artemy calls himself a half-breed. It's a brick to the mouth. Half-breed. Said so flatly, so easily to a child. I wonder where Artemy first heard it. Whether that's just the term the town on the River Gorkon uses for people who are biracial, whether it's an insult. It feels like an insult. It feels like I've just called myself subhuman. Like I'm a dog. Like I'm a barn animal. A creature to be bred for optimal efficiency. I think about the long history of dehumanizing mixed-race people through terms alone. Half-breed. Mulatto. Hafu. Mutt. Derogatory terms used to show that we are other. We are lesser. We are tainted with something else. I think about how defensive people can become when I explain the weight of their words and say, "Please do not refer to me as such," and how they'll sometimes become hostile, excuses leaping to their mouth. No, I think it's a pretty word. Oh, isn't it so much easier than saying biracial? And well, if we're being technical, you're actually several ethnicities, right? This is the more accurate term if you really think about it. So don't tell me that I'm wrong. Do not tell me that I have done you wrong. They say these things like their intent is able to erase centuries of censure. Like they are allowed to determine what I should be called and how I should feel about it. The labeling on its own isn't what bothers me. Labels are useful when applied correctly. They help us navigate the world, giving shape and context to what we experience. But when personal assumptions are given more weight than fact, when people don't even bother to listen when I tell them the truth, when they decide what they believe is more convenient or comfortable or reasonable than anything I have to say, that's when it starts to burn. I think about how mixed people aren't a monolith, and how to some people, the words we call ourselves don't mean anything at all. Maybe Artemy doesn't care. Maybe the way he engages with the world is not influenced by the words people call him. It's certainly allowed. Or maybe it was meant to be shocking and upsetting, one in a long line of things that Pathologic makes you sit and deal with. It doesn't really matter. It still sticks in my throat. I think about the context. A girl acknowledges Artemy as kin, and he says he's actually a half-breed, as he only has step blood on his father's side. I think about how I can't read too much into that, or I'll lose my whole day. I think about how Artemy doesn't look like the kin. That's fairly common amongst mixed people. We are a grab bag of features, skin tones and hair textures and eye colors and bone structures and medical histories, all set to randomize. Dominant traits hold strong over recessive ones, but the traits we assume are recessive prove a lot more unwieldy than high school Punnett squares might suggest. For Artemy, it means he's blonde-haired and blue-eyed, with distinctly Slavic features. If not for his clothes, maybe his accent, certainly his name, you might not realize his ethnicity at all. And sure, his physicality is complicated by the second layer of the game, the Brechtian absurdism, but I'm not here to talk about Brecht. I'm here to talk about how Artemy wears his otherness on his face. I think about how much this throws people in real life, how appearance is mistakenly accepted as the one true indicator of race.
I've gotten Cuban, Puerto Rican, Dominican, half black, half white,
People think I'm Asian.
Egyptian, Polynesian, Asian.
Fully white or fully Asian.
Almost everyone misreads me in some way. It's very hard to guess Danish and Indian from a first glance.
I've honestly heard everything.
I think about how unkind people can be when a person appears to be too light, too dark, too freckly, too curly-haired, too straight-haired, too different from what they are supposed to be. In my case, it's a lifetime of ambiguity. I am branded as whatever ethnicity people need me to be. Half black and half white, Latino, Polynesian, fill in the blank here. I am indeterminately ethnic because they don't really know what I am, they just know I'm not like them. I think about all of the assumptions people make about me based on my hair, the shape of my face, the size of my nose, the color of my skin. They look at me and assume English isn't my native language. They assume that my family are immigrants. They assume I was born in another country. They assume my parents aren't my own. They assume my siblings aren't my own. They don't ask. They don't wish to learn. People just decide what I am and treat me accordingly. And yet, there are times when people treat me differently because, if I present myself in just such a way, I can pass for white. The bigotry slides off my skin because they don't think I'm someone to be bigoted towards. Even with the discomfort of my identity being so ambiguous, I can, if I choose, play the system to my advantage. I think about Artemy and his pale skin, his handsome face, and how that probably serves him very well. There is an undeniable truth that passing as the majority, or at least not being read as an oppressed minority, can make things easier. If people look at you and assume you are a person rather than a termite, that smooths out a lot of roads. But it's a road that effectively smooths over your right to express your own life, your own pains. What is there to complain about? I sit here and I say that it's too hard and too bad that people assume things about me, and then I turn around and complain about how those assumptions can be convenient. What is there for me to complain about? Why are you whining about the possibility of being treated better? Why isn't benefiting from other people's discrimination good enough for you? Being able to pass in any majority culture does spare you some heartache, shields you from the overt acts of racism and persecution. It also means you have to pretend to be something you're not. Or it means you have to roll the dice every single time it gets mentioned. Do I say what I really am? Do I unpack the whole discussion? Do I risk them having a bad reaction? Do I gamble being treated worse, however tacitly, however subtly, however unintentionally? Do I acknowledge that I can theoretically benefit from a broken system, not by being given any specific boon, not by any cunning or action on my part, but just by not being treated badly? Is it decent? Is it wise? Is it even an option to play roulette with not being seen as a termite? Isn't it exhausting that I have to constantly choose? It doesn't apply just to the majority culture. I don't only have to correct white people when they talk about my race. Artemy doesn't have to counter bigotry merely from the townsfolk just because they think he's one of them. I think about how I've been called a dark-skinned beauty by a white acquaintance because they knew I'm not just white and wanted to show that awareness. I think about how I was called my favorite little light skin by a black acquaintance because they wanted to date me and assumed it would be a compliment. I was offended by both. I was reduced to my skin tone by both. So what do I do with that? I want to say both instances were acts of racism, but I'm not sure. I'm not even sure I'm allowed to say that if that is the case. I'm not even sure anyone wants to hear that. I think about the first time I watched a Trevor Noah stand-up special and feeling like I had licked a battery because I didn't know you could put those thoughts into words. I didn't know you could say the scary bit, the bit that makes everyone uncomfortable, out loud.
Mixed race people are categorized as black in America. Yeah. The only catch is, and nobody tells you this, you have to be liked and successful first.
I watched one special and then I watched them all, listening to him say the things that I'm saying, say the things I'm feeling, acknowledge the strange standards the world has about ethnicity, color, and race, and how inclusion isn't really inclusion if someone expects you to check a specific box for their diversity bingo card. I sat there howling with laughter, and then he said, "You laugh because it's true and because it's better than crying." And he was right. So I laughed harder. I think about the friction he had with an immigration officer, where he felt the same pressure I feel. That subtle insistence that he marked that he was black because there was no mixed option. I think about how he resisted that insistence and instead said that he was white, and how that didn't make sense to her because, well, I mean, look at him. She can see the truth on his skin. I think about how I also can't claim myself as white, how that's seen as inappropriate, even if I can pass as white in certain situations. Even the thought tends to freak people out once they know my ancestry. But you're not just white, people say. But you're ethnic. You're other. You're black, aren't you? You have to be black, or Latino, or Polynesian, or fill in the blank here. And I understand this belief is honestly come by. They earnestly want to acknowledge my identity instead of erasing it. The black side is cool. It's different. It's a point of interest, and yes, a source of oppression, so they want to give me the opportunity to express it freely, feel liberated from whatever social chains they believe I may be under. But after a while, it starts to feel like that's all I can express. It feels like that's all I'm allowed to be. I'm clearly not white, and there is no mixed option, so you have to be black. Because look at you. I think about how it goes the other way. How if you look white enough, you can't really claim to be anything other than white, or else risk being the weirdo that claims they're 1/16 of an ethnicity so they're allowed to insert culturally insensitive thing here. I think about Wentworth Miller. I think about Logic. I think about Halsey, Darren Criss, KJ Apa, and Shakira, and how it's always a shock when people find out they're not just white. Then I think about Jordan Peele, Keegan-Michael Key, Barack Obama, Zoe Kravitz, Lenny Kravitz, Lisa Bonet, and how they are also never seen as mixed people. They are seen as black, solely black, entirely black, those other elements of their identity completely erased to the public. I don't know if that's how they choose to identify, and it bothers me. I want to know if it's their choice. I want to know if they decided to be seen as much. I want to know if they received pushback, if they ever said, "No, I'm both. I'm more than one thing. You don't have a box that I'm allowed to fit in." I think about how regardless of what they feel, they are icons of black culture, not mixed culture. There is no mixed culture, beyond a few tepid platitudes that you're still beautiful, embrace your heritage, love yourself, don't hate your minority side. I don't hate my minority side. I hate that people solely define me by my minority side. I hate that I can't acknowledge my white side. I hate that I'm seen as colorist, racist, insincere, and self-hating if I do. I'm part white. I love that side of my family as well as the black side. I'm interested in that part of my ancestry as well as the black part. Why do you keep correcting me when I acknowledge my heritage? Why is it seen as an act of violence on myself for just admitting that? Why are you the one that gets to determine how I'm supposed to feel? Why do you think my minority side is even remotely hateable? At the end of the game, Artemy is presented with one final, horrible choice. The details here really don't matter because the decision comes down to this. Which way of life do you choose? Which solution for the plague do you choose? It's similar to the first game, and yet not, because there you were led very clearly by each character's storyline to believe one thing. Here, though, you have two options, and you walk the path of seeing both sides. Only you understand the strengths and weaknesses of both, and so the game asks you to choose. Do you choose traditionalism, mysticism, stagnation, archaic rules, miracles, blood sacrifice, and the kin? Or do you choose science, progress, mundanity, technology, conformity, and the townsfolk? Nocturnal or diurnal, Artemy? The kin or the townsfolk? Your father or your mother? There is no twilight ending, no dawn, no third path. You have to choose. You have to choose. Choose, Burakh. Choose. You have to choose. Us or them. Take the knife and decide which part lives. Which part you cut away like an infection. A parasite. Part of you is a parasite. Part of your existence is wrong. We're telling you this, and now you have to decide which part. Kill it, Artemy. Kill it. You can't have both. One or the other. You cannot be both. Like everything with Pathologic, there is no right answer. There is admittedly some bias between the tones of the two endings, the depth and larger implications, but they aren't framed as the good ending or the bad ending. There isn't a fundamentally, objectively correct answer. There's just your answer and the consequences that follow. There will always be something lost. You can only cling to one side of your identity and your parents and your culture because that is the only way to fit in. One or the other. You have to choose. I think about the first time I realized this was the choice Artemy had to make. I think about how it was a slow exhale of understanding, a softer release, something that, strangely, didn't make me feel so bad. It's still painful, it's still cruel, and it is still unjust, but Pathologic 2 knows that it's all of these things. It knows that, really, the best answer is neither of the ones given. I think of everything that has happened up until this point in the game. The dialogue options that allow me to say I defy fate. The declaration that I need to find a minotaur. A creature half man and half bull, human at earth, town and kin. The gameplay synthesizing old with the new, allowing me to use my Menku teachings beside my surgical skills. The fact that I've only been able to fight the plague by being both. This game has taught me that it is best to be both. That rigidity and a refusal to grow and change is the real pestilence, and that the only way to cure yourself is to partake in each side, to adopt the teachings and the practices as they serve me, and not because of my dogged genetic loyalty. Pathologic 2 has told me I am both, that it is good to be both, and when it gives me a choice we both know is wrong, it feels like commiseration. I'm sorry people force you to choose. I'm sorry this is a reality you have to face. It's better to be both than to cut one side away. Shh, I know. I'm sorry, Artemy. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry that you have to choose. It's a beautiful, comforting thought. It's also one I'm scared I completely made up. After a certain amount of the game insisting that there is no middle road, you have to wonder, why wouldn't Artemy be able to make one? In many ways, he is the mythical solution he looks for. He is the chimera, the minotaur that he thinks may save the town. You are given so many chances to announce that you are defying fate. Surely, that must be what your path is. The long list of people telling you flatly, to your face, that you must be wrong, do as we say, that must all be ironic, or a misdirection, or an obstacle you have to overcome. That can't be what it means on the face of it. No. Pathologic 2 means too much to me. It can't be saying all of these things in earnest. It can't. After a point, I start to doubt myself. I ask my friends who have played it before, is this right? Am I actually correct? Is Artemy meant to mend the divide between these two worlds? And they say no. They don't think a third choice is possible. They don't think the game wants you to heal the rifts between the two. The game is not apologizing for the harsh reality of the world. It is just giving you a harsh reality. My friends aren't mixed. They're not sensitive to these narratives in the way I am, but that does not mean they are wrong. Their reasons are sound, the evidence is well presented, and my confusion begins to turn to dread. Maybe I'm too close to this. Maybe I just want the game to tell me what I want to hear. Maybe everything that I've been thinking and feeling has been misplaced. I think about all of the times I wanted to take a middle path. Every time it felt so obvious, so effortless for there to be one, and yet the game firmly told me there was none. I think about Isidore's declaration that he tore the town apart so we could stitch it back up better than before. But how better means more homogeneous and monolithic, where one culture must triumph over the other. I think of how humanity and the earth refuse to mesh, two poles that cannot be pushed together by the very conceit of the world. I think of how Isidore tells us, to face the future is the way of love. To face the past is the way of love. But the two are incompatible, and it broke my heart. I think of how that cuts me every single time. I want to reach out and ask, why? Why did you think this? Why did you do this? Why did you have me? Isidore, why do I break your heart? What do you mean? I'm your son. I'm not incompatible. You told me I was to be great. Please don't tell me I shouldn't exist. You're the one person I thought would accept me. Isidore, this is my home. Why am I in torment when this is my home? Why did you do this? Why did you set me this task? Why didn't you help me? Why did you make a world where I am not allowed to exist? I lied earlier. The worst stories about mixed people aren't the trite, overly simplistic ones we tell children. Pathologic 2 is always a tragedy. There are no good endings. You have to actively and deliberately kill one half of yourself to survive. Half of you is dead for the sake of yourself, but mostly other people, and you just have to walk around to pretend you don't feel the crater hollowing out your skin. And then I think about something Solmatul said.
The game tells you openly that you will lose, that you cannot save everyone, that it's a fool's errand to even try. And then, with a wink and a smile, it asks you to be that fool.
And sure, she's talking about something totally different. It's about saving people from the plague in a silly game that wants you to die every single second. But I just want that to be the case for me, too. The game tells me, openly, that I will be made to choose. That people will try to dictate my racial identity out of ignorance or malice or misplaced good intentions, that it's a fool's errand to try and assert a place for myself. Then, with a wink and a smile, it asks me to be that fool. I think about how the game devs describe Artemy's overarching idea as the interconnectedness of everything and restoring the connections. I think about how I want to connect. I seek to connect, to tie things together. I want to teach people. I want to share with them. I want to give them the chance to better understand. When I talk about race, it's not to condemn or hurt or complain. It's because I want to connect with you. It's because I want to be known by you. The idea that I have to cut that connection for any reason is wrong. I've tried to write this essay a lot of times, and I always failed. Something about explaining all of these ideas was too much, because I had to make it academic and even-handed and all-encompassing while also explaining that it's me. It's just me. I look at Artemy, and I see me. I never knew how to draw a conclusion from that, much less make it pretty, much less keep it from being a definitive statement about the world, much less. So I didn't write an essay. I wrote a lamentation for everything I felt but haven't been able to say out loud. I wrote an exploration about why I can't play long stretches of this game without feeling like I'm going to be sick or I'm going to scream, because it's telling me I have to cut out a piece of my soul on top of dealing with everything else, on top of the plague, on top of the death, on top of everyone lying and cheating and sacrificing to get ahead, and I couldn't stand it. I wrote a plea that I don't want part of me to die, so please, stop asking for part of me to die. I don't know what the authorial intent of this game is. They told me one thing through the text and another through subtext, so maybe my interpretation is wrong. Maybe I did it all wrong. All I know is that they laid out a scenario and a resolution, and that I have derived a very specific meaning from it. But I still cherish what I think the game says, what I think it should say. I'm allowed to say that the choice so many people try to make me choose is wrong. I'm allowed to be the middle path. I will not cut out part of myself to suit someone else, because there are no disparate parts. I'm already whole. Thank you for listening. Please take care.